Now, the Islamic State group might have been pushed out of its strongholds in Syria and Iraq, but in the war against IS, territory is, of course, only half the battle, if that. The terror group is still inspiring new recruits through its online channels. But now some Iraqi computer hackers are targeting those sites and posting fake IS propaganda. And they spoke exclusively to our technology correspondent Tom Cheshire about their bid to use fake news to undermine the IS brand.
As Islamic State loses physical territory, its digital terrain is under attack too. This weekend, a group of young Iraqi hackers launched an operation to undermine the group's propaganda efforts, to use misinformation to sow mistrust. Fake news for the so-called caliphate. One of those hackers spoke exclusively to Sky News. She asked to remain anonymous because of fears of reprisal.
Our goal was to just create confusion and disputes among ISIS members and to tell them that their platforms, their media outlets, they use the designs, the templates easily could be faked.
The hackers disrupted Amaq, IS's news agency, and posted a link to a new fake version on Telegram, the encrypted messaging app favoured by IS members. They also posted images like this, mocked up to look like IS propaganda, this one announcing the death of a fighter that never happened. Those fakes did the job. In this Telegram conversation, IS supporters are arguing about whether the information is real. One supporter says, "They're using our hashtags to deceive us." And in this chat, IS supporters turn on each other, questioning their loyalties and calling each other dogs.
They just killed lots of people, they just killed our people. I mean, it was just in Mosul and many other territories in Iraq that they just abused people, they raped girls, they did every type of brutal thing. So it's really essential for us as young Iraqis and Muslims to fight those groups.
What's effective about this campaign is how simple it is. It's things like YouTube videos on the internet, but that's what IS used to great effect over the last few years, flooding the internet with this sort of material. So now what these hackers are doing is turning that propaganda machine against itself.
Even a freelance hacking attempt like this can have an impact on Islamic State.
It's an approach which is undoubtedly going to cause some complications for the group. So, I mean, if Islamic State doesn't know, or its followers don't necessarily know that they're getting the correct messages or they're getting messages from the group, you never quite know what to trust. And so sowing this sort of mistrust is never positive for an organisation.
The battle against IS isn't done yet, and it won't be for a long while, especially online. But people like these Iraqi hackers are opening another front. Tom Cheshire, Sky News.
I'm joined now from Trinidad by Arthur Snell, the former head of the Foreign Office Prevent programme. With me here is Haras Rafiq, the managing director of the Quilliam Foundation, which is, of course, a counter-terrorism, counter-extremism think tank. Very good to talk to you, gentlemen. And Arthur Snell, first of all, do you think this will work? It seems quite simple, messing around with the IS websites, but once they know they're compromised, won't they just go elsewhere?
Well, I think, it will certainly make a difference. And what we've got to realize is that actually social media is now the front line, and it has been for a while, even before the fall of Raqqa and Mosul. The Islamic State was not directing attacks directly into Europe. People were getting inspiration from online materials. So if those online materials are debased and somehow confusing and leading people away from Islamic State, that is a huge step forward.
Well, Haras Rafiq, what's your take on that? I mean, my point is it may confuse them, but will it lead them away from Islamic State? Won't they just find that kind of ideology somewhere else?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is very important in the what we call the disruption of IS and their tactics and their ability to get messaging out. Will it fix the problem? Will it actually solve the global jihadist insurgency? No, not on its own, but it is part of the solution. One of the things that we do get confused about, what some people do get confused about, is the focus purely and simply just on IS. Before IS, we had Al-Qaeda. Before that, we had other extremist organisations. Extremism breeded these institutions and these organisations. What I'd like to see more of, alongside this, is a flooding online of counter-narratives, but also alternative narratives. This is the key point. Counter-narratives which disrupt and prevent people from actually going down this path, but also give them alternatives, but more from an ideological perspective, not just an IS.
That's the point, isn't it, Arthur Snell? Counter-narratives, but counter-narratives, I guess, to which those susceptible people are receptive to.
Yeah, and that, of course, is the challenge. I mean, just think about the most recent attack in New York. The alleged attacker there apparently had 90 ISIS videos on his smartphone. It's so easy for people to get hold of this material. And as Haras is saying, there's got to be other positive material that is available to people. But of course, the most important thing is that it's credible, that it doesn't look like something that's being cooked up by a government or some other kind of state agency.
Well, is the best way then slipping it in? Because that's the point. I mean, you know, we know with so many things online now that people really want an echo chamber. They want things that reaffirm their already set worldview.
I think it's breaking into those echo chambers. I mean, one of the things that this particular organisation has done very well is to use Daesh's own or ISIS's own mechanisms, their own processes, their own hashtags, if you like, to actually get their messages to the right people. And one of the things moving forward, if you look at the generational struggle, it's going to be about getting the right message to the right person on the right medium. And that's going to be crucial moving forward, even more so than now. If you are seen to be somebody who is known as a counter-Daesh organisation, you're going to be, yes, you're going to be effective, but less effective than somebody who's doing this covertly. And there are many, many organisations that are doing this. This is just one example of this.
And of course, Arthur Snell, isn't one of the ways of doing this, of course, just getting the web hosts to take this material down, to police it better?
Yeah, and I think that's something that we're beginning to realise, not just in this space, but now people have concerns about the impact on elections in Europe and elsewhere. You know, people are starting to realise the power of the internet and the power that people can misuse it to shape people's minds. And, you know, we've got to start taking it more seriously.
I mean, and is that the case, Haras Rafiq? Arthur Snell touched on it earlier. Is this the main form of radicalisation now, or is it still done? It must still be done face-to-face as well.
Look, if you look at radicalisation, ISIS, Al-Qaeda, Boko Haram, Al-Shabaab, they don't actually radicalise anybody. What they do is they take people who've been radicalised already by other groups, people who are perhaps non-violent extremists, who believe in the otherisation, the victim mentality, the supremacy narrative, if you like, and what they'll do is tip some of them over the edge to become violent. You know, nobody goes online to buy something or end up doing some research and ends up becoming a jihadist. They've got to be looking for something, or somebody has to find them. And what ISIS have been particularly good at over the last few years, and the next mutation will also be just as good at, or if not better, is actually getting targeted messages to individuals to tip some of them over the edge. And we need to understand that. I mean, just taking their video content down is a bit like playing whack-a-mole.
Yeah.
On its own, it doesn't work. Yeah.
Listen, we're out of time, but very interesting getting your thoughts, gentlemen. Thank you very much indeed. Haras Rafiq, Arthur Snell, thank you once again for joining us.